Good morning and welcome back. Today, I'm very excited to introduce my friend Jennie Lou. We have been friends since I started as a live wedding painter. She's been doing this for a year longer than I have. So I've always kind of looked up to her. We have a lot in common. She's also a wife and mother of 3 little girls. And now she runs an agency. So she's in charge of the Jennie Lou Art Collective. And she is helping guide and employ a number of artists in the Denver and Dallas areas. So, without further ado, please welcome Jennie Lou to the podcast. Welcome to The Composed Artist, the podcast where we explore the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and self improvement and continue to pursue a more composed life. I'm your host, Stephanie, an artist specializing in live wedding painting, living in the vibrant and soulful city of New Orleans. Over the past decade, my job has taken me all over the world, meeting and creating art in front of thousands of people, and has allowed me to create a colorful life for myself and my family. Now, I help other artists build confidence, develop their techniques, and fall in love with the art of live wedding painting. I invite you to join us for inspiring stories of creative journeys, practical tips for running a successful art business, and honest conversations about the joys and challenges of running a studio and being a parent. This podcast is here to keep you company, keep you entertained, and is full of resources to help you on your journey to create a business that feeds your soul, makes an impact, and is insanely profitable. The Composed Artist is the podcast for the bold, creative, passionate, and genuine artist. Let's get started. So you have been a busy bee. You have been a live wedding painter for over a decade, right? How long have you been
Yep,
doing this whole
since
thing?
2014. So I reached a decade in March of this year.
Yeah, how's it feel? Do you feel like it went by in a blip
It went by
or
so fast. I really do
yeah.
feel like I just started, but it's like, then again, my body feels it. I'm like, I'm tired.
Mhm.
I've done a lot.
How many weddings do you do a year now?
Now I try to do about 10 to 15. I may even go down next year. Just with 3 little kids, I feel like if I do a little less, it would be a little more doable with children. Every
Mhm.
weekend I go to town. My husband's glaring at me because he has to take care of the 3 children, as you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to do more local, which is great. I love the Colorado mountains. Obviously, you can't get much better than that. But I do love my Texas weddings. So I try my best to stay in Colorado and Texas. But I
Yeah.
did get a Nantucket next year, and I can't wait for that.
Ooh, what time of
Yeah, that'll be
year?
fun. It's like peak time of year, August. So
Oh my gosh, perfect. Yeah,
I know I'm
you don't
bringing
want
my
to be in
husband on that one.
you don't want to be in Dallas in August.
No, nope, definitely not.
I
But I've
get
never
out of
been,
Dodge
so it'll be
too.
fun.
Me either. That sounds I know that's what I'm thinking. Oh my gosh, that sounds like a dream. Ugh.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could fill your quota between Colorado and Dallas and Texas. Do you go all around Texas or you kind of stick in the Dallas area?
I go wherever they'll pay me to go, Stephanie.
Heard that.
But it's usually the big cities. It's usually Dallas, Austin,
Mhm.
Houston. Every now and then I get a fun destination event.
Yeah, well, what I love about you, Jennie, and it's something that inspired me a long time ago because I started in 2015. So when I came into the scene, you were established, and so you were one of the girls. I was like, taking note. Love her work, and you have established relationships with like planners, and
Hmm.
like working relationships, referral relationships that have made, and I'm kind of projecting, I assume, have made business like very smooth and a dream because when the
Hmm.
referral is there, not only is it like a pleasant working experience, but they
Right.
know who you like to work for. They know who your ideal client is. And so they make that connection for you. And how has that,
Hmm.
has that worked out? Do you ever get a random inquiry from somebody like on Google, just like, hey,
Oh,
are
all the
you a
time.
painter? Yeah.
Yes. Google's a big promoter for me. Just, I guess, because I've been on the interwebs for so long
Mm-hmm.
that it's kind of pushed me up to more of the top of the Google recognition. I don't know all those words, Stephanie. I keep talking to these SEO people, and I'm like, you are 10 feet over my head right now. Like, I don't understand these words, but great.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
I know
But
it's
yeah,
important, and so I trust I trust people who are smarter than me in that area. I'm like, you do you get it done.
yes. Yes. I think, as you were saying, I think relationships has been extremely pivotal in my business and my business model. It's just
Mm-hmm.
who I am. So naturally it flows into my business model. And I don't want to work with people who I don't enjoy. So
Yeah.
the same goes for them. Like, the planners want to work with people who they enjoy, people they have an established relationship with, people they can call up and say, hey, here's the time, here's the venue, here's the client. I just need you to show up and do your job. And
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to worry about me because they already know I'm going to do everything exactly as I'm supposed to. And I have the right questions to ask. And there's no complexities to it. It's very streamlined. So that's the nice part about those relationships, for sure.
Yeah. And you by now you have, I don't want to say generational, but like family gigs, like were you just down in New Orleans doing
Yes.
the wedding of a sibling of somebody you had worked for a couple of years
Yes,
ago?
this family had hired me for all three of their sons, and so this was
Wow.
their third son's wedding, and this is like the mother and father of the groom's gift to them, which was really sweet. But I keep telling him, I'm like, there's amazing other artists. Please don't feel like you have to hire me every time. And they just wanted to keep hiring me. They're like, no, no, we love your work. We want to keep working with you. I think it's just the familiarity and the comfort level of people. They want to work
Mm.
with somebody they're familiar with. They already know it's been a great process, so why would I change?
Yeah.
Um, but you would be one of the first people I'd refer. I literally told them. I think I said, I know a really great painter in New Orleans if you want to hire her. So sorry I didn't get you that one, but I did
Oh,
get to
God.
make a trip to New Orleans while you were in Denver. So we just switched places.
Literally, I was just thinking that. You came down here and we were trying to like catch up because I had a wedding in New Orleans that night too. And then
Hmm.
when we missed each other, I was like, "Well, don't worry because I'm literally getting on a plane to come to your neighborhood tomorrow."
Yep,
So we did get to see each other then, which is great.
that was
You're
so great.
you're one of the few live painters. We do have an event coming up. Chloe is having the layover event coming up, and so I'll get to see a handful of artists there. But you're one of the people
I
I've seen
know.
a handful of times. Every time, or usually when I come to Denver, we try to connect if we can,
Yes, yes.
and it's so important for me, and it's so important to have a friend who you can relate on multiple levels with.
Hmm.
Not only are we both artists or like specifically live wedding painters, but we both have three little girls. We both
Hmm.
have our husbands both have their own businesses, and so they have that kind of authority over their career paths, and so there's this mutual respect between what we do as women and wives and mothers and then what our husbands do, and supporting,
Right.
what we do to support each other in that way. And um I really am grateful for the friendship that we have,
I
isn't
know.
that
Well, I was
wild?
telling you when you walked out of my house, I was like, I just felt so encouraged because there's very few people that can relate to me on so many levels. It's like they
Mm-hmm.
can usually relate to me as a mother, as a friend, as whatever, but you got 5 or 6 layers covered.
Yeah, that's
And we're like,
hilarious.
oh yeah, and my husband is doing his thing in his business and he's achieving, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, can you also celebrate my achievements? Like, how do we
Yeah.
do that in our marriage? Because we're both successful people and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to balance. And sometimes you look at each other like, wait, are you going to parent or am I going to parent? Which one? Because I got to go do my job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hard balance. It's trying to figure out, when I'm gone, he's the parent and he's taking over my role. When he's gone, I'm taking over. So it's very equal. Um, but it's awesome to have a husband who celebrates your achievements and is willing to let you drive forward. And
Yeah.
especially you, I'm like, dang, you just snowplow through and you just like cover so many bases. Like, how do you do it all? This year has been the most stressful year of my life. So I've had to take a few steps back and just
Yeah.
sit down and relax a little, but
You
I'm getting
took on
there.
a lot. Like, I know, yes, I do take on a lot. And it's funny, you mentioned it a couple of times. People ask me all the time, how do you do it all? There's so many things
Yeah.
that I want to do. There's so many things that I see other people doing and I'm like, "Oh, that would make sense. I could do that too." And you try to make it happen in your head, but then you have to really just
Hmm.
kind of cherry pick what makes sense for you and your journey and what your goals are. So like the podcast, this is a piece of the puzzle that I've added
Yeah.
for a reason, but so on my end, when I think of all the things that I want to do at all times, I'm like, I
Mhm.
mean, this is what this doesn't seem like that much to me. So maybe I'm just crazy. But you took on a lot this year too. You had a
Mhm.
baby and you moved and you started
Mhm.
an agency.
Mhm.
That's a lot. That's You essentially started a whole nother business. I
Yeah,
would
while
love for you to
traveling.
tell, yeah, and travel. So I'm
It's a
sitting
lot.
here in awe of what you've accomplished this year. What was the hardest transition of all the things that you took on this year, kind of overlapping? What was the hardest transition?
Oh gosh. I think people underestimate how hard it is to move houses. We literally moved 2 miles up the road. But I think with 3 little kids, I have a 4, 2, and 7-month-old, and well, back then she was like 5 months old. So I was barely sleeping, and I we went on 2 family vacations with my family and his family, and we also traveled for like a week with each, and right in the middle of that, we were like doing showings at our house, so you have to keep it clean, which is nearly impossible not selling your house with toddlers. So
Mm-mm.
we just had to keep them out. But that was really hard. The best thing I did for myself was hire organizers, and they literally packed my house and unpacked my house. And I just looked at my husband and I was like, non-negotiable. Sorry,
Mm.
like we are hiring somebody to do this.
Yeah.
So I mean, looking back, that was hard. And I don't know if there's one that's harder than the other. I mean, I had a baby and it was, a little bit of a complicated labor and delivery. I had high blood pressure and some issues, and it was a hard recovery. So I really didn't take time for my postpartum self to heal. And I think that became a problem where I was just like, wow, I have just powered through and I haven't really taken a good inventory of myself and how I'm doing. And so I had to take a bit of a break, and which, a break for me is like a week. I'm like, okay, I need a week just to like go see doctors, take some time to myself, go run, just ways to like decompress.
Wow.
And I am finally doing so much better. But I think just all of it at once just kind of like overwhelmed me. And I'm not one to be overwhelmed, and I don't get stressed out super easily. So for me to be stressed out was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is like a lot and you really do need to stop. But my husband's such a good balance to me. He's like the perfect opposite. So he helps me slow down, calm down, take it one step at a time. He's really logical. So he's like, here's the steps that we're going to do and we're going to make it through. So we're so much better. I finally have a studio that doesn't look perfect right now, but it's awesome, so much bigger than my other one, and just gives me my own space. But I love being home. My kids being in the other room with a babysitter, and can walk out and go see them and have lunch with them, and then come back and work. So it's really refreshing.
Yeah, that's nice. You do a really good job of accepting help. Like
Yeah,
you search for that help. You don't try to overwhelm yourself by doing every single little thing, like having all
yeah.
3 kids in the studio with you while you do a really good job. And I try to do that as well. I know that I can't possibly, like, especially pour from an empty cup. I can't,
Hmm.
spend all of my energy doing the work and then have the kids here at the same time. I don't know why I think I can't do it. My mom did it. She homeschooled 7 children. And so sometimes when I feel like, "Oh, I'm so tired," I just kind of like laugh at myself, like, "Shut up." You know,
Oh, but
uh,
she wasn't a live painter. She wasn't traveling. She wasn't
no.
starting a podcast. So your mom's amazing. But I
Yeah.
think that was her like main job was
Mhm. It was.
homeschooling. And that's
Yeah.
not our main job. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel a little guilt saying that, but at the same time, like God has made me specifically with these giftings and this skill set, and I've had to wrestle through, okay, Lord, what does it look like for me to be a good mom and a good business person? Because I find so much joy and so much passion and so much peace in what I'm doing. And I don't think, if He didn't make you for that, then you wouldn't have peace going in that direction. But I have so much peace in that. And I have peace in how I parent. I think I just had to learn to separate the two and like put on my work hat and then put on my mom hat. And for a while there, I was trying to do both at once. And I would get upset at my kids because they were getting in the way of what I had to do to get my business going. And I finally hired somebody 20 hours a week, and it's been a game changer because
Mm.
she gets to take care of them. They're safe, they're having fun, and I'm getting my stuff done. And then when I take this hat off, I'm fully present with them and I'm not upset at them because I've already gotten everything done.
Mhm.
So it's just a balance. It's such a balance. Margin, taking time for yourself, rest, all those
Yeah.
things.
And that's the challenge. But it's,
Yeah.
like you said, God would not have given you this desire or this
Mhm.
skill set, first of all, but the artistic talent, the artistic, like that little ingredient that he gave the artists in the world.
Mhm.
It would be irresponsible to not take advantage of that and show love and show kindness
Right.
using your gifts like that. I think it's important that we take the reins on the gifts that we've been given and then apply them
Right.
and
Yeah.
use our powers for good, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
and if you are if you are inclined and smart about it, then you can turn it into a business and help support your family. I
Right.
know a lot of people who are maybe single mothers or
Mhm.
the breadwinner of the family.
Right.
There's a lot of responsibility there. So they have to
Mhm.
be successful. They have to be make an income, and it has to be consistent and sustainable. And some people it's just for fun, or they'll do like 2 or 3 a year, and it's less the on the spectrum of the importance of doing this as full-time or as part-time as possible. We all have our paths, and we all are doing the best that we can with what our goals are.
Right.
So,
Yes.
hey, live wedding painters, have you taken a minute to evaluate your business yet? Have you started to think about next year yet? As this year comes to a close, it's important for each of us to take a moment and reflect. Did you hit the goals you set for yourself? Did you set goals at the beginning of the year at all? Was there any clarity in your vision for your creative business, or have you just been hanging on for the ride? Now, imagine starting next year with a clear plan, a year where you're building a stellar portfolio and booking dream weddings, showing up with confidence, and taking bold steps toward your career goals. That's exactly what my goal setting workbook is here to help you achieve. Created for the members of my online course, The Wedding Painter's Blueprint, the Goal Setting Workbook is more than just a place to jot down ideas. It is your roadmap to success for the year ahead. With guided evaluations, you'll identify your unique personal and professional challenges. You'll address physical and psychological elements that might be holding you back. And you will set clear, achievable goals and map out the steps to reach them so you can turn your vision into reality. This workbook is free to download and print so you can physically write down your goals. It includes tools to help you track your growth and adjust as needed, and will actually help you take vague dreams and turn them into concrete plans, and turn those plans into real success. Next year doesn't have to feel uncertain. The Goal Setting Workbook will help you take charge of your career and step into the new year with purpose and direction. Click the link in the show notes to download your free version of my goal setting workbook and kick 2025 off with clarity.
Yes.
So, speaking of goals, now that you have 3 children and y'all are settled in your new home, what do your goals look like? Because you're trying to kind of rein it back in on the number of
Right.
weddings that you do. So, how are
Right.
you kind of supplementing income and formulating some sort of future for yourself as a painter or your business? Talk about it.
Yeah, so for the last several years, I have built relationships with some artists, and it's just been interesting to observe from kind of the outside looking in, like how they're doing in their business. And every now and then I'll have like touch points and phone calls with some of them who have become friends of like, hey, how can you elevate your business? How can you do better? And it's been so nice to have the Wedding Painter's Blueprint to be like, well, I have a good friend who started this awesome education course. And it's been awesome to be able to give them that and help them like see what it takes to start a business. Because I am not an educator by nature. I'm more of an encourager. I like to be a mentor. Like I can help encourage you. I can show you things that I see. But as far as like educating you and teaching you every single step that you should do, and this is exactly how you do it, I'm not gifted in that way. And you totally are. So that's been cool. But that leads up to these relationships that I've already made. They have asked me over time, hey, would you ever consider basically representing me or being like my agent, something like that? And I've kind of toyed with the idea, but having 3 kids in 4 years, I was like, that sounds like a mountain to climb. I don't think I can do that. And my husband kept encouraging me in the background, just, I think you'd be really good at this. But I was like, gosh, that just feels like so much to take on. And finally, I just got to the point, which I don't know why it happened this way, but like right around the time that I had a baby, I'm like, terrible timing. Why did I do this? But it just felt like the right time. I think because in maternity leave, which is only like a month or two for us, because you and I can't sit still, so it's hard to slow down. I'm like, I get bored in maternity leave, and I'm like at home, so I'm like, I can work while I literally was in the hospital bed for like 10 days. I had preeclampsia. It's a whole story. But I was responding to clients and they're like, hey, can we have a phone call? And I like called this one client and they could hear the beeping in the background of like some machine. I was like, and I was like, sorry, I'm in the hospital. And they're like, what? You're in the hospital? I was like, yeah, I just thought I'd get some emails done while I'm sitting here. Like,
Oh my
and I'm
God.
like, I can't believe I was doing that in the hospital. But like, it was just time I was sitting still. So I was like, I have plenty of time. I'm just sitting here
Well,
reading
also you're
books.
bored. Yeah. Like, what do your mind is going on your checklist, all the things you got to do. I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah. But the rabbit trail is leading to essentially, I just decided to make the leap and just see what happens. And I'm holding it so like openly. If it doesn't work out, that's totally fine with me. But I owe it to these girls and I owe it to myself to give it a shot and try it out. And I've really enjoyed it. And the girls that I have on my team are just such a joy. Each of them, I prayed and I just was like, obviously faith is a huge part of my life. My faith in Jesus is a big part of why I do what I do and who I am. And so I just prayed and was like, Lord, if this is what you would have for me, then you've got to bring these girls like to my doorstep, because I don't really want to go out there and chase and look after and try and find them. And I mean, literally a lot of them just showed up on my doorstep. It was like they called to be like, hey, how are you doing? Are you interested in like helping me with this live painting booking? And I was like, yeah, I'd absolutely. Actually, I'm starting this team, and why don't I just do the booking for you and I'll just charge your client a little bit extra. And so it's really great because a lot of them are moms, and one of them's a single mom and she's amazing. And it really just has been such a reward and such a blessing for me to be able to give them something that they maybe didn't think that they could do on their own. A lot of them are like, I get overwhelmed by the administrative tasks. I get overwhelmed by the contracts and the legal work. How do you even do that? And I just said, well, I mean, I have it all already set up. So if I just do all the bookings for you, all you have to do is show up when I tell you and do what you love, and I will literally do the rest. So they've all just, it's like they can take a huge sigh of relief because they don't have to be responsible for all the hard parts, and they get to do what they love and they get paid what they want to get paid. So they tell me, here's the minimum of what I want to get paid. And I say, great, I will always give you at least your minimum and I will always try and get you more than that. But the client is taking on the payment for me. So it works out great. As of right now, we have 7 total. And I've got about 3 more at the door who want to jump on board. But right now, I feel like the leads are starting to slow down. It's kind of that time of year. So I'm trying to slow down and not over get the cart before the horse, like get too many people on the team. So we're stopping at 7 right now, but I've got 2 in Texas and the rest of us are here in Colorado. And I'm hoping to get more in Texas and eventually more in Colorado. I think I'm just getting all my systems in place. So the bookings and the spreadsheets and Dubsado and all the things.
Yeah. So
But
you're
it's great.
building. Well, congratulations. That's really exciting.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun.
I love seeing new businesses come together, whenever you've got a passion for it and you understand what you're talking about and you're not just kind of making it up as you go. Like, that there's evidence because you've had a career that has worked out,
Yeah.
and you have those relationships, and then you see potential in the girls that you're bringing onto the team and a
Right.
desire to help them. I mean, I see it working out for you. It is so
We'll
far.
see.
And it was so much fun for me to be able to meet some of them. I was able to go up to
Yeah.
your retreat, which was so much fun.
It was
I
so
love an artist
lovely.
retreat. My gosh, we went up to up in the mountains in Silverthorne,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to do a little face painting
Yes.
demo, and we got to mix some colors, and some of the girls got to play with oils for the first time, and it was so much
Mm-hmm.
fun for me. But it was really fun also to be able to talk to the artists that were there about how live wedding painting is kind of playing into their own paths, their own goals.
Mhm.
Some of them they focused on their original work and then they just kind of supplemented with the live paintings. And then
Right.
some of them were definitely experienced with the guest portraits, but were wanting to try the bigger, more involved, like a masterpiece of a painting. And that's really inspiring. And
Yeah.
I could go on and on, but that's really wonderful. You may have heard me talk about my little side business, my little fine art print shop. I create an original painting, I take a photo of it, and I print it, and I print it again and again and again. I make hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars a year on prints. It's so easy. And I learned everything I know about creating my own prints and printing them in-house from Laurie Ann Gonzalez and her Art to Print course. I highly recommend, if you are an artist and you want to make easy money from your original works and even the commission works, you can resell those as prints. I recommend you check out Art to Print. Laurie Ann has a very direct way of teaching, and you are really going to appreciate her no fluff method of giving you information and telling you exactly what you need to do to make making fine art prints in your own studio a breeze. You can check her out online at learn.laurieannart.com. That's learn at LaurieAnnEart.com, or just click the link in the show notes for my affiliate link. Check her out and thank me later. You as an artist, I was just wondering, are you really enjoying the admin side of running this business? Because I know that you're very business minded. When you and I have had phone conversations in the past 9-10 years, a lot of what we've talked about is business and managing the
Mhm.
business and contracts. And, you
Mhm.
are very astute when it comes to like how your business is run. And are you enjoying running the business for the other artists, or are you missing the creative side of it? How are you feeling about that?
I have reached a point, I think I was telling you at the retreat, just where I don't know if burnout is too harsh, but I've just felt like I haven't had time or space in my life to get better in certain areas of art. Like I want to do retreats, I want to do workshops, I want to work with other artists and really develop more of my style. And I just haven't had time to really jump into like, okay, I really want to do much better with faces and developing the perspective of the composition, things like that. And so here and there, I like get an hour in, but it's not enough. And so it would be awesome for me to be able to have some time to just spend maybe a month like studying different artists or taking some workshops. I love Marjorie Hicks. She's one of my favorite inspirations when it comes to figure drawing. And I'm about to take a course with her over Zoom, and I'm really looking forward to that. But to answer your question, I do love business. That's like my favorite part of it. And beyond business, I love building the relationships. And I think my success comes from relationships, whether it's relationships with other wedding vendors or planners or the SEO person or the person developing my website. I just met the girl who helps me with Dubsado and my copywriter. I'd never met them in person in Dallas. We had always met over Zoom, so we finally met in person. And it was just like hanging out with friends, and it's just so fun that the whole team that has helped me become who I am. I look back and there's so many people behind me, and it's all just deep relationships with each person. It's like I find a web developer, but that web developer, Meg Stefan, her business is the Studio Stefan, and she's amazing. And they've become friends. It's like anytime I have an issue with a website, I can just call her up and say, "Hey, can you help me with this? I really don't know what to do." Or is there somebody that you know? So I think relationships is really the core of my success in business. And that's what I look forward to continuing as I'm doing this background work at the office. I just love being able to make those contacts and
Mm-hmm.
touch points with them, talk to people on the phone. And I love sales. Like sales for me, again, is just genuine relationships. So it's like call up a bride and say, "Hey, I'm so excited for you that you're getting married. Tell me how you guys met." It's more than just, "Hey, I'm selling you a product." I'm also selling you who I am, that I'm trustworthy, that we can be friends after this. And I would love to meet you and your husband for lunch years down the road. And they're like, "Oh, this is the artist that painted my wedding." It's more than just you're only painting for them once. It's like you're building a relationship over time.
Oh, for
So
sure. Building
yeah, that's
trust
a
there, because the investment is
mm-hmm,
substantial, in order
mm-hmm,
to, so it's really important to sell yourself as the artist, because we both know artists in the world who are sought after because of, who they are
Oh,
and how
yeah.
friendly they are, or what they choose to
Mhm.
wear, or their accent, or
Yeah.
just the whole persona. Like it's like hiring a musician. It's, yes, they're talented, and you get the entertainment factor, and you get the product of what they're offering, but also you get them. So I think that
Yeah.
that's so important. Would you say that that's one of the most important elements? Like, if you were to talk to an up and coming artist, an up and coming live wedding painter, somebody who's
Mhm.
trying to break into
Mhm.
the space, if you were to offer them advice, what piece of advice would you offer them when it comes to managing, or creating relationships, or
Mm.
getting into the space and introducing themselves? Like, what would you tell a young person?
Gosh, there's so many things, Stephanie, as you know. One of the first ones that comes to mind that I've told my artist is, I think when I started, there weren't very many people doing what I'm doing, and I didn't have much competition, which was really awesome. But I also had to start from the ground up, and I had nobody to learn from. And now you can look around, and there's people all over who are doing this, which is amazing. But it's just a different place to step into. And so I think the problem that I'm seeing is a lot of artists are comparing themselves to other artists. And there's some
Mm,
insecurity there of like, well, I'm not good enough, or I'm not Stephanie, or I'm not Jennie, or it's like, no, you're not supposed to be. God made you and your gifting different than everyone else's for a reason. And I think the second that you start to feel that sense of insecurity in your artwork and in who you are and your identity, you need to take a step back from social media. That's like number one, and just turn it off for a day or a week, and go paint, and paint how you want to paint. And I think something for me, like, I could be really insecure if I compare my work to yours, because my work and your work are so different,
different.
and I'm never going to be able to paint like you have such a gift in realism and portraiture, and it's beautiful. My gifting is more in just the response that I have to the live event. It's more of a impulsive, responsive, very painterly style. So I love just responding to the music and the moment,
Mm,
and it's not as refined. And there's times when I'm like, gosh, I wish I could be more refined. Like Laura Switek, she's one of my favorite people too. She painted my wedding, and I adore her and her style. But again, like, I'm never going to be a Laura. I'm never going to be a Stephanie. I'm going to be Jennie. And if I'm not Jennie, and I'm trying to be a mixture of all these different artists, then the client and everyone else is going to look at my work and be like, I don't really see what their style is. Like, it doesn't really, it's not authentic. It's not standing out, because it's kind of like a mush of different styles. And really, I think my encouragement would be, we can always learn from each other. I think I learned so much from you, but take it with a grain of salt and put it into your work in the way that feels most natural and most
mhm,
peaceful to you. Because if you start stressing yourself out that you're not making that one line exactly how Stephanie does, then take a step back and be like, what if your line is perfect as it is because you made it? So, all that to say, I think authenticity is my favorite word and will always be my favorite word, because it's just who you are without anyone else having a voice in your life. And it's who you are made to be. And if you start to get away from that, there's just there's an inauthenticity, and there's an insecurity that starts to happen. So my big encouragement to artists is just find your voice. Like, paint, 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 keep painting. And the more you paint, the more you'll find what you're good at and what you love. And people around you, ask them, what do you like about my body of work?
mm,
And they'll tell you. Like, they can tell that this painting is yours because there's something about it that has a signature to it that's just yours. So, anyways, get on my soapbox.
no, that's awesome. That's really good
Yeah.
advice. I have learned from your work, from studying your work, I have learned to let my brush strokes live, and not like
Hmm.
clean it up so much and be so tight and rigid. To push color more. Like the color balance
Hmm.
in your work is really inspiring, because you do have that synesthetic kind of, the, what do they call it, synesthesia, whenever you're
Hmm.
painting the colors that you see in the music, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's a beautiful work of art every time for that reason.
Well, thanks,
And
Stephanie.
I just love that about your work, and then Laura's too. But anyway, your work has inspired me to loosen up, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you are allowing yourself to be inspired by what you see and feel and hear at the weddings, and that's
Hmm.
that's beautiful. So as a
Thanks.
painter, when did you start drawing or painting? Like, when did you in your life realize, oh, I really like art, or somebody called you an artist? Like,
Mhm.
what was that the early days like for you?
I have been asked that, and I think it's hard to pinpoint an exact time. I've always been creative. I've always loved drawing. There's always been something that has spoken to me when I pick up a pen or a pencil or a paintbrush, just the freedom and the peace that it brings. I used to sit at the kitchen table with my grandfather. He's surprisingly a really good, he draws really well. And I was such a horse person. So he would draw
Mm.
horses and teach me how to draw horses, and I loved doing that. But I would say around the age of like 16, 17 in high school, I had a friend of a friend, and she was teaching painting classes from her house. And she had me over, and I started using oils for the first time. And she was amazed that I just caught on to it so quickly, and it was just very natural. And I look back, and that was really where I started thinking, like, maybe I am an artist, maybe I'm a painter. I'd never put those words to my identity. And in college, I told my dad I wanted to study art, and he was like, Jennie, you're not going to make any money as an artist. So my dad said, if you do that, if you want to do the art school, then you need to do graphic design, because graphic design is going to be your best shot at making money out of college.
Mhm.
So I told him I would, and I did graphic design, and I quickly hated being on computers. And I started taking painting classes, and I just fell in love with it. And college is really where I like got dirty and my hands got in the paint, and I could just really feel that visceral emotional reaction to paint. I just loved it. And it was just like, I felt like I was using all of me to make something. And it's just intoxicating when you really get into painting and you really love it. So I knew something was there, but I actually had a painting teacher who he and I had very different styles. And he told me that I essentially wasn't a good painter. And I graduated thinking, well, I'm not a good painter and I'm not going to be an artist, but I'm going to go love on the world's children. And I did Teach for America for 2 years. And it was awful, extremely hard, but very rewarding by the end of it. And it took a lot of anxiety and exhaustion in my life to finally get back into painting as a way to just escape anxiety. And that's really where I found the joy and the peace again. Was after Teach for America, I needed something to bring me peace and joy again. And so I picked up a paintbrush. And that's when a lot of people just started affirming. They were just like, I love what you're doing. Can I buy this? I was like, sure, $50. I'm not a very good painter, so or you can have it for free. And I had a friend who was like, you were a graphic designer, make a website and business cards and see what happens. And so I made a website and business cards. And I had a friend who was getting married, and she asked me to paint at her wedding. So I just showed up with an easel, and that was March. No, that was like January of 2014 at a botanic garden here in Denver.
Mm.
And from that one wedding, it was just like the rest is history. So took off. It was
Yeah.
cool.
I think it's hilarious that so many of us have such similar backgrounds, are
Mm-hmm.
kind of like inkling, like maybe maybe I could be a painter, or maybe painting sounds fun. Personally, I didn't, I was shocked when I saw that at LSU, where I went to college, you could major in painting and drawing. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
really?
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
I
What are
know.
you, how is that
Mm-hmm.
employable, undergrad,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then a lot of us went into graphic design just because that, I think 10 years ago, 10, 13 plus year, whatever,
Yeah.
however old we are, that was the cutting edge of the arts, the graphic arts, the websites, marketing on your website was.
Tech was just really building. So that
Mhm.
was what they were using to build tech, was all the graphic design and making it
Yeah.
engaging and advertising. So it
Yeah,
was
and then
awesome. I just
it
didn't
was.
want to do it.
And there's something about, and I don't know if you share this opinion, there's something about being told you can't do something that kind of
Oh,
makes
yeah.
you feel, it's like this little spark. It may not be, oh well, I'm gonna prove them wrong, but it may just be like, but what if I could? If
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to everyone in your whole life saying you're going to be the best artist, and then you're trying
Yes.
to like
Yeah.
meet their expectations. That
Yep.
sounds, whew, that sounds like a lot of pressure. That would have certainly, my lack of experience, that would have set me back if I would have had been like trying to live up to somebody else's
Yeah.
expectations. So whenever I
Well,
was
there's
like, I'm going to
something
paint, then it was going to be like this. Like for me, the goal was to impress everyone because they didn't think it was possible or whatever, that kind of
Mhm.
rebel spirit a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's a little pride in being like, "Yeah, and I told you so, and I did it,
And I
and
did it.
Dad, you didn't think that I was gonna do this," and he's very proud of me now and goes around and shows people all my artwork,
Mhm.
and I'm always like, "Yeah, and he told me I couldn't do it."
There's something
But
about
he's an
that.
entrepreneur, so maybe he was just planting that little seed of competition of like, "I'm gonna tell you you can't so that you start working really hard to show me that you can."
Yeah. Are you still using cheap art supplies? Look, you don't have to tell me, but if you want to level up, you have to use better supplies. Come on, let's invest a little. I've been using Rosemary and Company for my paintbrushes for the past 5 years or so, and I have never thrown away one of these brushes. The quality is unmatched, and they're like reasonably priced. I hate to say it, but they're the best. So I love a long handled paintbrush. Okay. I love a hog hair or an ivory, which is kind of a mixed bristle hair. And Rosemary and Company, they have like so many options. So I would check them out. The website is www.rosemaryandco.com. That's Rosemary spelled Rosemary and co.com. Or you can just click the link in my show notes and it'll take you directly to my personal wish list. It's all the brushes that I use and recommend. So check them out and thank me later. When you think about, I know right now you have little kids, and when
Mhm.
you have little kids, they require so much of your time and attention and energy, and for a good thing. I mean, it's wonderful. The vocation of motherhood is just wonderful. I'm a fan. But this season is going to pass, and then they'll be in like sports, and then they'll be teenagers and not want to have
Oh,
anything to do
right.
with you. Have you ever thought about what you would do as an artist, or what you would want to do in terms of how you earned your living, or what creative endeavor you might go down later on whenever your kids are out the door, but not 20 years from now,
Mhm.
maybe like 10 years from now when they're so busy that you have some free time. They're not quite
Yeah.
as dependent. Have you thought about what you might want to do?
I it's hard to think past today when you have so much on your plate, but I have in moments thought about how I like what it might look like in 10 years when I'm more sure of what direction this Jennie Lou Art Creative is going or collective is going.
Mm,
And I really want to pick up oils again. You really inspired me of like, I did oils all of college and I love acrylics, but they just aren't as bright and vivid and the viscosity is not there. And I would love to do oils again, but I want to spend like a year doing creative retreats and learning from
mm,
other artists and going to Italy. I mean, you've already done a lot of that, but I think I was just so busy in entrepreneurship and with kids that I haven't been able to pursue the creative teaching and education that I want
yeah.
to. I just want to learn. I want to see how far my hand can take me and what my style would do if I really push it further. Because school, I mean, Baylor Art School was awesome and I saw my style develop over the 4 years that I was there. And I'm like, okay, if I did a couple more years doing education, I'm sure I could push my style even further. So I think I have a lot more I can grow in and a lot more I could get better at,
Mm.
but that just doesn't feel like I have the time for that right now.
Well, yeah,
Every now and then.
you got to do the thing where, who said it? It was Stephen Bartlett. He's a very well-known entrepreneur in the UK, and he runs the Diary of a CEO podcast,
Hmm.
of which I'm a fan. But he mentioned in
Mm-hmm.
one of his episodes that he uses this idea of putting something on a someday shelf. And ever since I heard that, I was like,
I
ooh,
love that.
I love that, because you're not giving up this idea, but you're on, like, within your power. You're saying
Mm-hmm.
that's, I will someday, not today. And there's
Yep.
something for me, because like I said earlier, I always have all these ideas and there's all these things that I want to do, but intentionally not chasing shiny objects and like putting those blinders on.
Yeah.
Um, it it gives you control to a degree,
Mm-hmm.
and then peace about
Mm-hmm.
what the decision you're making right now, so that you don't feel like FOMO. Like I feel
Right.
FOMO. Like I was saying, my friend
Right.
is getting her pilot's license, and I'm like, that's on my someday shelf.
Yep.
I intentionally put it there. So like art retreats, someday shelf.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
for, traveling and doing the retreats, you can do virtual stuff, and then like you can host more retreats. In fact, I think you should host retreats and then just bring the people you want to learn from, bring them, and then
That's
you
a
can
great
participate in
idea.
your own
Sounds
retreat.
good. We've got a good place to do it, so maybe we will.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's another part of it. Again, I'm such a relational person and I want to build those relationships with. I just see such a need in the art community for somebody to believe in them. It's
Yeah.
like artists, even in school, I just saw so many artists who they play small. And that's why there's this starving artist term that you've heard your whole life. And it's like, why is there a term starving artist? It doesn't need to be. But I think a lot of it comes down to, does the artist believe in themselves? And sometimes it's a little too much. It's like, okay, I believe my art is so good that I can't take any critique and I can't take any feedback.
Yep.
And for me, my success has been I am so like, live art is not about you and your art as much as it is about customer service.
Mm.
It's about serving the person in front of you because they're spending a fortune to have you there. And I think one thing that my clients love is that I give them a voice into my artwork. And a lot of artists are too afraid to do that. They don't want anyone to say anything about their work or give them advice or tell them what to do. And it's like, no, there's a fine balance though. You give them certain questions and you give them questions that you don't ask. There's
Mm-hmm.
questions that you don't ask because you don't need the answer to those. But enough questions that makes them feel like they have a voice in their piece that there is going to be on their wall. So anyways, I would love to mentor more artists and just encourage them. I'm like a very confident person, as you know, and a very blunt person at times. And so I can very directly speak into their life and say, hey, here's some things that I see. And what if you allowed your client to give you a little bit of feedback? Because I think, if they're not booking things, why is that? Is that because people are afraid of you? Maybe they're afraid to hire you because they want more say in their artwork that they're getting, and maybe you're not giving them that. Or there's a lot of reasons why, but there's answers to why your business is not succeeding. And I think it just takes a little bit of evaluation from somebody who's a little ahead of you.
Yeah. And then, like you said, asking for feedback, giving space for collaboration, not being too big for your britches, and
Mm-hmm.
and treating it like a commission as opposed
Right.
to there is a degree of, you implement your style, use the tools that you have in your arsenal, because what we're doing as live painters is very organic. You can't say, I can paint any style that you want just to book the
Right.
job, because that's not going to end well if you are hired to do something that you can't create organically.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I tried in the past. Somebody asked me to, they showed me the work of somebody who paints with a very impasto style with a palette knife and a lot of
Ooh.
thick oil paint and very rough.
Mm.
And I love the style and I've studied the style and I have friends who paint in that style, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go. And then I showed up and I was terrified, and it showed, and I ended up making it a little less robust and more like an underpainting with the embellishment of the texture. And so the painting
Mm-hmm.
was unique and very cool, and it's the only one I've ever done live. And I don't show it on my website because it's not my it's not
It's
my
not
style.
consistent
It's
with
not
your
consistent.
style.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And if I felt, drawn to that style to make that my style, then I can go that route. But just trying to now when somebody asks me, can I want a painting, but I want it to be like really thick paint and blah, blah, blah. I'll say, okay, that's not me. Here's 5 artists off the top of my
Yes.
head who I know are going to
Yes.
nail that style, because that's the kind of art
Mm-hmm.
you want. And that's another thing. Whenever someone is hiring you to paint at their wedding, yes, they want the entertainment. Yes, maybe they want you there. But a question that I ask my clients in my discovery call is, like, close your eyes. Close your eyes and think about your home. Like, what's your style? What's your taste? Do you like a lot of very bright, vibrant colors? Do you like more neutral
Mm-hmm.
palette? Do you want it to feel
Mm-hmm.
very soft and out of focus, or do you want it to be like a large portrait?
Mm-hmm.
What the painting, what do you envision? And that
Mm-hmm.
gets them thinking. And usually when they think about that, those elements, they're much more clear They won't say, I want a portrait style paint. No, they're much more clear on, oh, actually, yeah, I really want us to be real big on the canvas. Or really, I don't care about us being all the detailed. I really want the room to feel very grand or whatever.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
being open to that kind of feedback allows
Right.
me to serve the clients in a way that they feel we've collaborated, right?
Right.
So I think that that's wonderful advice for other artists, because I was going to ask, like, what is something that you've noticed that kind of bugs you about what artists in the industry do, and not for the sake of gossiping, but for the sake of education. Like, what's something that
Yeah.
is you've noticed out there that seems to be holding people back, or
Yes,
hurting?
that's a very good question and something that I think a lot about. I think I've had people say, like, how come you're such good friends with like Stephanie or other artists? How do you do that when they're your direct competition? And I don't believe in talking down about somebody. I think we need to elevate each other in the industry. And I think what you're doing is so helpful because I think your gifting in a lot of ways is educating. And I am not an educator. And for me, for 10 years, it took a long time to raise my prices because we had very little competition
Mm.
in like the business arena. It was like a lot of artists, but like people who are really doing well in business, there weren't very many. And so your pricing stays the same because I'm charging whatever I'm charging and they're charging significantly less. And if they don't start to learn business of like, hey, you have to raise your prices every year and you've got to get higher, then I can't raise my prices because I have no competition at my level.
Mm.
And so it's refreshing for me to see artists succeed because I think the more success that you see in the industry, the more you're going to succeed. And if you have people below you that aren't succeeding, like elevate them, lift them up, point
Mm.
them to Wedding Painter's Blueprint or Layover or Cloud Studio that Chloe's doing. I think it's great that she's doing that. And she and I are doing very similar things. And that can be seen as like, oh no, Jennie's doing what Chloe's doing. But really, like, she and I are so different in our personalities and our approach to it that we're very different in our approach to this business model. And like, look at a realtor or look at a doctor. How many are there in the world? There's
Mhm.
thousands in one city. And so I think it's very immature for artists to talk down about other artists or to criticize them when they don't know them, especially
Mm.
just if you think you know somebody through social media. Try and make a phone call with them. I just talked to Brittany Rawls. She is in North Carolina and she is just the cutest. And we talked for like 2 hours, but for years we'd followed each other. And I'm always like, Brittany, we need to hop on a call because I feel like we have a lot in common. And so we finally hopped on a call and I was like, I mean, I feel like we've been friends for years. And it was just like so easy to talk to her. But, anyways, I've really been trying to reach out to some other artists lately just to talk to them on the phone, like build a relationship. And I think that's
Mm.
great that Chloe's providing Layover for people to build relationships because it's easy
Yeah.
for us to have that competitive, jealous mind.
Yeah.
And in order to get over that, you need to have gratitude for the other person and be thankful for who they are and thankful for what they bring to the industry. Otherwise, you're going to start to have this resentful, ugly heart, and it's just not healthy. I mean, trust me, I'm not perfect. I've had those jealousy moments and I've had to check myself like, stop comparing yourself, Jennie. You're, preaching to the choir when you're talking about this stuff.
Mm.
So, anyways, yeah, that's a huge thing. Just don't compare yourself, learn from each other and build
Mm.
relationships, build friendships. Why not? So,
Yeah. And don't worry about what people are, how you perceive people online on Instagram, because we're using it as a tool to market our services. And so that's
yes.
curated, highly curated. A lot of us
Yes.
will hop on the stories and kind of show a little bit of an organic kind of,
Yeah, you're good at
yeah,
that.
well,
I don't need my face on those stories very often. I'm like, oh, this is way too intimidating.
it's
I
hard
wish
to
I was more
do.
like you. I
Oh
know. I'm
gosh.
like, I
It's
just
hard to
am
do. It
too.
takes a lot of energy and humility to get on
Mm-hmm.
in my kitchen with horrible lighting at 9 o'clock at night, just because I had something I wanted to say,
Yeah, it just
whatever.
worked out. My face is all
Uh,
red.
yes. Oh my gosh. And yeah, so my posts, may I definitely kind of edit the posts and curate that to be entertaining, and I've got my strategy
Mm-hmm.
for how
Yeah,
I use Instagram, but that's not me. You and I get together when we can in person, and we're both like, and
I
just kind
know.
of unwind and can be just truly restful and ourselves, and I can receive
Mhm.
anything that you give me. There have been times where you have offered me advice and I've been like, how do I do this? When I was
Mhm.
making the course, you certainly gave me some wonderful feedback, and I'm so
Mm.
thankful for that again. And then when I was at your house, you were so overwhelmed. I was like, it's okay, girl, kids come first, and just to be able to be there for each other is so grateful. I'm
Yes,
I'm so
social
grateful.
media is not reality.
No, no,
It's
it is
not
not.
telling the truth about all the struggles that we have. So if you want to
Mhm.
know them, just pick up the phone and call me and I'll tell you. It's
Mhm.
not easy. It doesn't look pretty and perfect all the time,
I
but
used to be so scared. I mean, terrified to bring oil paints to a wedding or an event that I was painting at, until I realized that Gamblin has me covered with all of the mediums, the paint thinner, the varnish, the whole gamut. I love using Gamsol as an odorless paint thinner. Okay, this is what I use to wash my brushes to thin the paint. I use a big jug of that to slow the drying time. If I'm trying to finish a painting and layer and do all of that, I use Galkid. It's a very thick medium that I love to use with my oil paints. And let's say it's very dry, it's a very hot and dry environment. I love to slow the drying time with refined linseed oil. This is my medium of choice for my oil paints. And when the painting is dry and I'm ready to send it off to the client, I varnish it with Gamvar, high gloss. That's my preference. And Gamblin has you covered with your preference as well. You can visit their website, www.gamblincolors.com. That's spelled GAMBLIN colors.com, or you can click the link in the show notes to shop my preference for oil painting mediums. Check them out and thank me later.
but we
Yeah.
do need to do another retreat, Stephanie. I'm like thinking about how restful that was and just how refreshing it was to just talk openly and candidly of like, this is hard. This is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we've never going to talk about, when you're in person, it's just different. So
It
much better
is.
to be able to just talk authentically to each other about what's actually going on
Yeah.
instead of judging each other for just what you see on social media, which
100%.
is easy to do. We all
And
do it.
and everybody has different goals. It's really important for anyone listening. It's really important to understand what your goals are first. Like sit down if you haven't and consider where you want to be next year, 5 years from
Mm-hmm.
now. Are you trying to work more? Are you trying to work
Right.
only in a certain area? Are you trying to
Right.
work all over the country, because or work less? Like your
Right.
goals will help define who you're targeting. And Jennie and I have different, we both work in Denver, we both work in New Orleans, we both work in Dallas. Like she
Mm-hmm.
said, like she's not going to turn someone down just because of the location or whatever. But her goals are different than mine. So she in
Mm-hmm.
no way is, and she's Jennie Lou and I'm
Mm.
Stephanie. We are
That's
different
right.
people.
We're
We're
different,
not
different
even
goals.
we're not even competitors. I see you
Yeah.
I see you as a colleague and someone that I can call
Yes.
if at any time. I text you often. I mean, I'm just grateful for your friendship.
Yeah, I
Grateful,
had to
grateful to know
text
you.
Stephanie of how the heck do I do a checkerboard floor? It was just not working out. And Stephanie sent me a video drawing perspective. And I was like, oh, wow, this is definitely something I need to learn. So I ordered a
Oh,
book. And guess what I've had to do the last 3 paintings, Stephanie?
checkerboards.
Checkerboard dance floors. I'm like, what in the world? This is just humorous. Like, since when have checkerboard dance floors been every wedding? I'm like, wow, this is
What are
popular
the
again, I
odds? But you
guess.
nailed that last one. I saw it on was it your
Hey,
story?
thanks.
Yeah, it was
I don't
perfect.
know.
Because I paused it and I was like, let me check out that floor. And it
Yeah, I
was
know. Well, we got some
perfect.
room to grow. I bought a perspective book. It's up there on my bookshelf.
Yeah. I've got tons of books.
Anyways.
There's a book called The Book of the Book of Hands, the Book of 100 Hands or something. I
Oh,
have to find it.
nice.
In fact, I'm gonna tag it in the episode because I think it's a great one. And it's literally
Yes.
drawings of hands at different angles, and it has helped tremendously with how I
That's
quickly
awesome.
paint hands that are the size of my pinky nail. It's
Oh
incredible
my
what
gosh.
just studying a little bit will do for you.
Yeah.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
man. Okay, Jennie, I wanted to ask you a few questions that I'm just really curious about and I think would be really helpful to let people get to know you a little bit better. What is
All
one
right.
skill that you learned in a previous job that prepared you for this
Mm-hmm.
this current job?
Well, I briefly talked about Teach for America, and it's one of my favorite things to reference because I learned so much from that job, even though it was so hard. And I would say the number one skill I learned was how to fail. Failure is a big part of entrepreneurship and it's a big part of being an artist. And if you can't handle failure, then I don't want to say never, but you're never going to make it as an artist or as an entrepreneur because we fail every day in something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get so defeated by that and so upset and anxious or depressed, there's something there. So you really need to dig into, why do I let myself feel failure in such a deep way? Instead of, failure is our greatest teacher. And when we don't do something well, or when a client gets upset, you really have to allow failure to teach you something so that you do better the next time. And Teach for America was just every day I was up against way too much, more than I could handle, with kids coming out of all kinds of backgrounds. They couldn't spell their name at 12 years old. And it was so frustrating and so defeating for me because in 1 year or 2 years, I couldn't tackle all of that by myself.
Mm.
And so I felt like a failure every day. Like, I can't. And my dad always taught me, can't never did nothing. We all grew up in that generation.
Yeah.
And so I'd hear myself say that and I'd be like, well, that's not helping me. So what can I do about it? And I just take, my favorite motto is the next right step. So it's like, okay, if they can't spell their name today, then let's learn letters today. They're in 6th grade, but whatever. So we're going to just try and try and try again until something works. And it's the same thing with art, same thing with entrepreneurship. Like, if you do a really bad job on a live painting, you could cry about it for a couple days and feel like a failure. There's a real part of grief, but at the end of the day, or at the end of the couple days, pick yourself up and say, okay, what can I learn from this, and how can I do better next time? And if you can't have that attitude, there's just going to be a lot of issues in your business and in the way you approach people. And I think anytime you have failure in your life, I'm a big believer in journaling. So journal about it and write about it. Write yourself a letter and say, dear Jennie, this is what you could have done better next time. I have a lot of letters to myself that are really helpful, and I'll go back and learn. But learning to fail is a big one that I've learned. I don't do it perfectly, obviously, but it's a big thing to put in your back pocket.
Wow, yeah, that is incredibly deep. And if you're a live wedding painter, you learn to fail on a public scale.
Oh yeah.
In front of a whole bunch of people. Honestly, I love the opportunity. I love hearing somebody's like, "Oh, I got my first wedding coming up." And I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, get ready. Like you're going to learn to shake off the jitters of being watched, because we know the process of creating a painting is so intimate and vulnerable, first because
Mm-hmm.
it looks like doo-doo for so long. And yeah, that's a wonderful real life opportunity to practice and fail and say,
Mm-hmm.
"Ooh, do it different next time." Yeah, love it. Great advice. You mentioned being burnt out a lot this year. You took on a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Burnt out. You also said, maybe it's too extreme a word, but it's not. You can have one. You can be burnt out after one day of parenting 3 little girls. Like
Yes.
I
Oh
feel
yeah.
that. So after burnout, what's a secret that you have for finding motivation after
Mm-hmm.
that, or continuing to stay motivated when you really don't want to?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, it comes back to my faith. My recharge and my light and my fire comes from what I believe about the God who made me. And so for me, it's spending time alone in prayer and in my Bible, and just relearning my identity. And my identity doesn't come from my bad paintings or my good paintings or what people say about me. It comes from what Jesus says. But if that's not your faith, then I would highly recommend just relationships being your source of motivation. I think when we make our jobs real and personal again, it really motivates me. It's like, whether it's talking to a friend or talking to my husband or talking to my mom, somebody that you can just vent to about, hey, I'm really struggling. I'm just a words of affirmation person. So whenever I get words of encouragement from friends, or maybe they ask me a question that I really need to dive into, like,
Mm,
hey, it seems like you're really anxious about this. Why is that? Things like that. Even counseling's great too.
yeah.
So I don't know. I'm such a deep person that I just dig into the deep stuff when I'm needing to be motivated. I ask myself, why am I struggling right now? And usually it comes back to identity, of like, what is it in my identity that's not feeling rejuvenated by my job? And you can find a lot of answers
Oh,
when you ask yourself that.
there's so much wisdom in that, and it's making me laugh because you sound like the opposite of my husband. If I asked him that question, he's such a man. He would say, I just take a shower and I just go, like he avoids depth at all costs. Oh,
Yep.
but I mean, there's so much wisdom in that, just some self-reflection. Beautiful.
Mhm.
You shared a lot in this conversation today, and I'm very grateful for this. You shared a lot of advice to other artists, people who have been doing this for a long time, who maybe could use uh, some advice, or those just getting started. But do you have maybe a final piece of advice for artists who are entering the space as either a live wedding painter or a guest illustrator or an artist trying to offer a service-based type of art
Yes.
product,
Well, that you said it in the question. I think we can never lose sight of the fact that our job is a service. We are serving others. It's not about us, it's about the service that you're providing. And it's really hospitality. It's you're stepping into a very intimate space when you're painting, whether it's a birthday party, an anniversary party, a wedding, whatever it is. You're there to serve the person who hired you. And if I'm tired, like I was in Dallas this weekend and I had 5 hours of sleep the night before and I was exhausted, but I just picked myself up and was like, I got to just be my best self because it's not about me. And so don't acknowledge your tiredness, get some coffee and go smile and engage people. And I could have easily just put my AirPods in and not talk to anybody, but it's important to me that I engage the people around me and serve. And so
Yeah.
when people walked up, I had like 8 kids next to me and I put a video on my story of them, but they were talking to me the whole time. And I was just like, I could easily be annoyed right now, but I'm just going to talk to them and ask them, do you like to paint? And they all just are just so cute. But it's hard. It's very hard to balance. Like, I just want to get it done. I just want to paint. I want to go home. It's late at night, but just don't lose sight of the fact that it's a service and pick up your eyes from your painting sometimes and notice the people around you, talk to them, make them feel loved by your presence there.
Sing it, sister. I love it. That's the
Yeah.
words that I live by. We're service-based artists. Oh,
Mhm.
thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Where can people
Yeah.
follow you and see your work, and then also learn more about the Jennie Lou Art Collective? Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Okay, well, real quick, I again have 7 artists so far, and I'm potentially growing next year. We'll just see how this end of the year pans out. But I would love to talk to any of you. I love talking to artists and just making connections. So feel free to DM me on Jennie Lou Art at Jennie Lou Art on Instagram. It's JENNIE though, LOUART. And my website is the same thing, jennielouart.com. But yeah, I am always around. And when I have space in my life, I'd love to hop on the phone for 10, 15 minutes and meet all these artists since I'm not going to be at layover, but hopefully next time I'll be able to go. And then we'll talk about our retreats and maybe have some artists up to Colorado to the mountains.
Yeah, I look forward to the next one. I already called dibs on a spot. I
Okay,
can't wait to
great.
go back. Oh my gosh, thank you, Jennie. And yeah, as you can hear, anyone who's listening or watching on YouTube, Jennie's incredibly efficient in her advice. She's very to the point and respectful. She's respectful of your time. I'm a little bit of a chatterbox. Jennie is a very good teacher in that way that if she hops on the phone with you, you're going to get step 1, 2, and 3 moving forward, and it's going to help. It's going to help your business. So thank you all for listening. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you again, Jennie. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, girl. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on this journey of artistic exploration, entrepreneurial growth, and personal development. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is both fulfilled and balanced. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe to The Composed Artist on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more creatives like you. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep pursuing that composed life. You got this. And usually people go to Santorini because it's the Instagram island. And
Right.
it was so pretty. But Milos
Right.
had all the beaches, all the coves and the caves, and it's just
Ugh,
that one was
magic.
so we drove around Milos for an extra day, and then we took a helicopter from Milos back
Oh,
to
yeah.
Athens, which was a splurge, but it was definitely was a
worth
45-minute
it.
flight as opposed to a 4-hour ferry.
Yeah,
So,
isn't that the craziest when it like hovers? It's like the weirdest feeling. Just
and you
goes
feel
straight up.
so light, like it feels so light. It feels like you could be on a bicycle, like
Yeah, it's like you're
crazy.
flying. It's crazy. Anyways, I mean, it's different than an airplane. You don't feel like you're flying, but like you feel like you're on like a broomstick almost. It's like, oh, I'm just
Yes,
floating through the air.
you're just
So
floating.
cool.
It requires no force like a plane. It
Mm-hmm.
requires so much force.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
So
okay.
you put your pilot Stephanie hat on.
I was asking all these questions, and he was like looking at me like, "What do you? Yes,
What are you planning?
You're right. What do you? Yeah, how do you know?
It's fine. I need to add to my resume that's already like 10 pages long.